Hello and welcome back to Bookish. Today I wanted to do my April wrap-up and my May TBR. This should be a really quick video because I had a kind of a rough reading month in April. I only finished 3 books. I'm going to blame this on a Marcel Proust style hangover. It was just so much work making myself read 30 pages of Proust a day that my brain needed a bit of vacation. There were some days in which I didn't really read hardly anything at all. So I did read Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States, and there's a review of this that I did just a couple of days ago on the channel. I thought it was a pretty good history book. I really liked what it had tried to do. I really liked that it kind of challenged, conventional wisdom about history and the treatment of Native Americans. After that, I read Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Ward. And I finished this book quickly. As a matter of fact, one reason why I was able to get through 3 books this month was that the last 2 books I chose were really easy to read. And I don't mean that because the subject matter of the books was easy, but they were just really, I thought, really well written. So I never read Jesmyn Ward before. She's one of the authors, I think way back when I did the Buy the Bet tag. I said I was going to read because I'd never read anything by, and I did, and I really liked this book. The story, I thought, was really well told, and there were so many hallmarks of Southern fiction in it that I really just was kind of amazed by her, I think, courage in using a form that people, like Faulkner had used before for covering kind of a theme that Toni Morrison had covered before. And I guess it's possible to look at this as, she was too derivative of those people. I don't think her book was at all. There are definitely echoes of Beloved by Toni Morrison here, and I don't think anybody would tell you any different. As a matter of fact, my memory is there's a blurb on the cover that says something like that. But essentially it's a novel told from several different perspectives and different characters, and you get their kind of bird's eye view. It's not stream of consciousness, but you get their view of the events that are going on. Sometimes those views overlap, sometimes they don't. There's a supernatural element. It's a novel in which we see one of the main characters grow as a person and become stronger and become a real leader and a rock within his family when he grew up under really difficult circumstances. There are times when Sing Unburied Sing is a painful read. Any story for me, and this is going to sound sappy, but any story for me that involves mistreatment of children really is sometimes difficult for me to read. And this is one of those books. But in the end, the strength of the main child involved, comes through, and it really makes the book worthwhile. The last few pages of the book, I don't even remember stopping to see what page I was on from about page 30 to the end. Really good, mesmerizing stuff. Not perfect. I don't think all the characters were perfect. I have a tendency to think that a lot of the characters had a tendency to be somewhat one-dimensional, which I think an author can hide a little bit if there are lots of characters. Lots of characters each representing kind of one dimension can hide the fact that the characters are not perhaps fully fleshed out. And I felt that way a little bit about the characters. But like I said, I thought it was a very good book, and I enjoyed reading it. The third book I read in April, which I just finished really, was Manhattan Beach by Jennifer Egan. This was my second Jennifer Egan novel, and I'll tell you that I think she is a great writer. And I'm not necessarily talking about story, character, plot. I just think she is a great writer of sentences and paragraphs, and her prose just flows, and in an almost indecipherably kind of beautiful way, I think. The book, I thought, started off incredibly strong. I thought the book was really strong through the middle, and then the last 100 pages of the book, to me, the book just kind of fell apart. The plot stopped making sense. The characters' decisions stopped making sense. I felt the intrusion of the author a little bit in the machinations at the end of the plot, and there were scenes and things that happened which just appeared to be thrown in and tagged on, and there were parts of the end that I really just kind of spoiled my enjoyment of the book. Not my enjoyment of the writing, but my enjoyment of the story. To give you an example without any spoilers whatsoever, the main character in the book who is a young woman living during World War II, working in the defense industry. The main character in the book essentially wins the right, through her skill and determination, to do something only men were allowed to do. It's a dangerous job, and it requires a lot of training and apparently the development of a lot of skill to be able to do this job. And a whole big part of the novel is about this young woman's, winning and proving that she had the right to do this job. And then near the end of the book, the author has a completely untrained man with no experience whatever do the same thing that she's been doing with no training, no experience, and he does it perfectly well. He does it practically flawlessly. That really ruined what I think was an important element of the book, and I just didn't understand that. There were other decisions in the plotting the book at the end that I found confusing too. So I would say it's a good book. It's not a great book. So those are the 3 books I read. So for my May TBR, I'm finally going to pick up some books that I've been meaning to read for a while, and I'm going to keep my May TBR short. What I'm hoping is that I can get through 2 or 3 of these books and then have time at the end of the month to get to a book that I failed to get to in April. So my first read this month, I believe, is going to be Ohio by Stephen Markley. This book has been in the BookTube Book Awards, which are being organized by Robert over at Barter Hordes, and I believe this book was in Steve Donohue's top 10 novels of 2018 in the Open Letters review online. And so I was intrigued. I picked this novel up before I knew it was going to be up for the BookTube Book Prize, and I've been meaning to get to it for a while. It apparently is a depiction of kind of small town life in Ohio and a group of friends, and I'm kind of down sometimes for small town life fiction and kind of the dramatization of how much more complex life in small towns and communities can be. So I'm not sure that's exactly what the book's about, but I'm looking forward to it. I just started reading it today, and then sometime this month, I'm hoping relatively soon, I'm going to be able to start on Black Leopard, Red Wolf. So this is apparently a challenging read. I was watching Jason over at Ghost Reader, and he was saying how he'd put it down. I think he's reading it as an audiobook, and it's just picked it back up again, and that his second time in listening to it, reading it, that it's gone better. I'm determined to finish this book this month. So both of those books come in, somewhere around, well, Black Leopard, Red Wolf is more than 500 pages long, and Ohio is more than 400 pages long. Those are some pretty big books, and so I'm only going to set myself a goal of finishing those 2 books this month. If, however, those books go faster and I can get through them quickly, I also want to read another work of nonfiction, another history book. This is called Fault Lines by Kevin Cruz and Julian Zelizer. Apologize. And this is basically a history of the United States since 1974. I'm interested in history, and I read a fair bit of history. And then if I finish those 3 books, or if I'm left with a relatively short amount of time at the end of May, I'm going to go ahead and pick up The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin, which is the first book in her, what's the kind of this series called? Shoot, I lost it. Anyway, it's the first book in a series of books, and this would be kind of my first foray for a long time into fantasy / maybe a little science fiction. And I have been looking forward to this. It just always gets pushed to the bottom of my TBR list. Anyway, there you go. This month I'm going to read Ohio by Stephen Markley, and I'm going to read Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James, and I might read Fault Lines, A History of the United States since 1974 by Kevin Cruz and Julian Zelizer, and if I have time, I might read The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. Anyway, there's my wrap-up of May and my wrap-up of April and my May TBR. If you've read any of those books or have any thoughts or encouragement for me about any of those books, please leave that in the comment section down below, and as always, thank you for watching.